Good evening. I want to thank everyone for joining us. We're excited about the Officer 1 through 4 rollout of the new standard and the Incident Safety Officer and the Health and Safety Officer as well. So I just wanted to, what this is I'm going to walk through how the courses look now and some things we've added into the courses that all the instructors need to be aware of. And then this is being recorded, and any instructors in the future that want to go back and look at, I'm going to go over the standard changes and updates, but also want to go walk through some things we've learned through several instructors on how to make your classes more efficient, and both in the delivery of the class and getting your grades to you more efficiently. So that being said, we will not be here very long. So I know how our attention span as firefighters goes. So you should be able to pay attention, and it'll be over with before you realize it. So the first thing I want to talk about is we're going to talk about the standard update. And very briefly, not a lot changed. The Officer 1 through 4 all stayed relatively the same. There was some succession planning added to the higher levels. There was some social media things added to the lower levels, but all in all, very similar to the old standard. But as you all know, the textbooks were not going to stay in print, so we did have to update all of our textbooks, and I'll go over that. These are some things we went over in previous instructor updates, but tonight we're talking to experienced instructors, as well as this is for any new instructors that are looking to teach the officer and the health of the safety officer series. So we know in order to be certified, someone has to reach 70% on the written test, as well as 70% on the projects. All projects will be submitted through our AFC online course format that I will go over very shortly. Here's our new Fire Officer 1 and 2 textbook. It's the 6th edition. It came with we have new PowerPoint presentations, and just like the last company officer book, I want to highly encourage all of our officer instructors to give plenty of prep time. Of course, reading the book, looking at your materials, including the projects, go over the projects. If you have any issues whatsoever, that I'm your go-to. I will be your first contact. And if it's something that I cannot correct, I will get it corrected. My goal for this year with this new standard rollout is to have a conversation with every instructor to teach in the officer series the week before your class. So this is the new Fire Officer 1 and 2 book. 15 projects for Fire Officer 1, just like it was before. And so I want to say this about our projects that I've said several times, is that your Fire Officer 1 is like here in the state of Alabama, we're most common refer to an Officer 1 as a company officer or as a lieutenant. Those 15 projects for Fire Officer 1 are simply everyday duties that a fire lieutenant and all the fire departments that I've been associated and that I'm familiar with, that they would be doing. There's nothing overly complicated. It is simply tasks that you would be doing as a Fire Officer 1, as a fire lieutenant. 9 projects for Fire Officer 2, same thing. These are all duties that a fire captain would find themselves doing in a fire department in Alabama. These are straight from NFPA. So NFPA also agrees that these are straightforward duties that a fire lieutenant would be doing in Officer 1, and that a fire captain would be doing in Officer 2. So nothing too complicated. I'm going to walk through the way we've laid out the project format. Hopefully we've made it more clear on what is to be submitted. So everything needs to be submitted in Microsoft Office or Adobe PDF. Because of that, I want to go over a few things. I want to show you how to verify that file type because what that's going to do is it's going to expedite our project grading. My goal is to look at your class while it's happening to make sure the file types are good, but that doesn't always happen because of schedule and things like that. So I want to show all the instructors how to go in and do that yourself. So let me see if I can get out of this. So here is the template for our Fire Officer 1 course. And let's say that you're teaching the Fire Officer 1. A few new things I want to walk through with you. The first thing is our academic integrity. If I can implore to you, we have to make it well known to all of our students that our goal is to certify them, but they have to show their own ability. This is not a contest in who can find the projects completed somewhere else or who can find information online and copy and paste. This is them simply demonstrating their ability to operate as a fire lieutenant, fire captain, battalion chief, and administrative chief. So because of that, and because we have really taken another step into protecting our academic integrity, they now have this video that they will watch. Once they watch that video, each student has to do this. They will click on the acknowledgement here, and that'll carry them to this page here where they will answer these questions. And they will simply read through here that they understand that they are being graded on their work and they are not to plagiarize anything. If they do use a source, we have videos we provided on how to cite that source. So they will go through and click they understand on all of these things. After they read each one of these, they will understand that and submit your answers. Once this happens, this will start to open up things on the course for them. When we're in discussions right now about how this is going to work, we got some courses taken off tomorrow and next week that we're going to be in contact with the instructors to see how this is going. So our goal is that there will be no student that will be under any impression that they are in any way can plagiarize another source, that they can use projects that somebody else has completed. That is, our goal is to make sure that we're very clear that they're being certified through IFSAC and Pro Board on their ability to do the job and not someone else's. So most of the course page stays much the same as you've seen. And for any first-time instructors, what you'll have is you'll have your presentation. This is straightforward, the PowerPoint presentation. To quickly show you how that works the best is I highly recommend that you download this PDF, this presentation. So I'm going to save it here to my desktop. And then I'm going to get to and we're going to view in full screen mode. And now this thing will act exactly like a PowerPoint. And so save it and then view full screen mode is the way you want to do it to make this thing look the way it's intended to look. So that is how that works. And if anybody has any questions, please unmute your mic and ask. And of course, I'll have time. It may be more efficient if you jot them down somewhere, and we'll have a question and answer session at the end. If you have a question, it could be, if I don't answer it by the time I finish this, others may have that same question. So the next thing here is the lesson outline. This is simply an outline of the chapter. So some instructors like to actually print these off. Now, I want to caution you on that, because if we make any changes to the curriculum, that's why we want everything coming from the online course format, because we can make one correction. If there's a typo somewhere, if there's a content problem, we can correct it in the online course format. And the next time you come to teach another class, everything is the latest updated version. If you print something off, I know a lot of training officers like to print these off and keep them in your office. If we make changes and you got the old version printed, you won't have the latest version. So just be aware of that. But some instructors do like to print these off for the class. I've seen instructors use a tablet or an iPad, and they can hold that as they scroll through here to cover all the topics as they're covering the overhead presentation. That's an option for you. It depends on your teaching style and how that works for you. So that is the lesson outline. And you have this for, you have the presentation and lesson outline for every chapter. And then we get down to the projects. So here is a couple of videos on how to create, if they're going to cite a source, how to create those footnotes. So that's a resource that we made available to the students there. If in my opinion is that if they're taking a Fire Officer 1 course, then they are either an existing lieutenant or they're trying to become a lieutenant, and they should be able to do all the projects from their own knowledge. There shouldn't be that much that they have to go out there and look up and to cite and use. But if they do, then there's the directions on how to do that. Now, what's something that's a little different in the updated courses, we now have each project broken out into 2 documents. I'll explain I'm a why person. I want to know why we do things the way we do them. The reason we've got them like this is because of our plagiarism checker that I'll cover shortly. And before, we'd have a student that would upload the directions pages and everything along with their work. And the plagiarism checker would come back and show a high number, when in fact, the plagiarism checker was just hitting on the directions that everyone else was submitting. So for that, we've separated it out. Now you will go in here and you'll click on the directions, and this is simply telling them, and this is something that I really think is going to work better. And we're all in this together. You teach a class. My goal is to speak to you the week before you teach. You'll have my contact information, and during your class, if you find something that you think would work better, we're always trying to do things the best we can. So in these project directions, it is clearly stated what you will submit, because that's a question that we always get a lot on the projects. Okay, we read the directions, but we're not exactly sure what's to be submitted. Each of the projects will be spelling out exactly what they're going to submit, why they have to submit it, and how they will submit it. And let's look at that right quick. The submission document. So for each of the projects, we've got a submission document here. Oop, wrong click. Stand by. Submission document here. And it kind of lays out what they're supposed to do. Their mission statement. This is, for Officer 1, a company officer lieutenant should know the department's mission statement. They should know the roles and responsibilities of each rank of their department, and then they're to draw out their organizational chart. That's the 3 things required for Project 1, Officer 1. That hasn't changed. That's been Officer 1 for some time now. So that's the submission page. That's what they will submit. So once they save that, then they will submit their Project 1, and that hasn't changed. They'll scroll down to the bottom, add submission, and they'll walk their way through that. I usually click on the little add file icon there. I'm going to choose my file. We'll grab something here. And we upload the file. And if that was our Project 1, then there it is. And there's my file. Now, I want to back out of this, and I want to show you something as an instructor that will make your class go, in my mind, much more efficiently. So what happens when your class is finished, then the project grading begins. That's the way we do it. We give them to the end of the last day of class to get their projects completed, and then we start the grading process. Several times we've come to the grading process and we go and open up the submissions, and lo and behold, they're file types that we cannot access. So this is what I want to encourage you instructors to do. If this is you scrolling through your course page, when you get down to this submit project one, so you've went over the project with your students, you've told them to go ahead and submit it, and you walk in here and you're going to check and see if they've submitted. So you yourself click on submit project one, and when you view all submissions, and when you scroll, there'll be all of your students. Just I'm the only one in this class right now, but it'll be you and all of your students will be listed on this page with their file out here. So you can quickly, I'm not asking you to go on the projects at all. All I'm asking you to do is check file type. So you can quickly open this page up and scroll down this page and look under the file submissions and make sure all of those files are in Microsoft Office or an Adobe PDF. What we have learned, a lot of students use the Apple products, and that's not a problem. We've learned from my experience, if you know something different, please tell me, but every Apple product out there will create their file in Adobe PDF or convert their file to Adobe PDF. So when you open each of the project submission page, you'll scroll through all of your students and you're simply looking for these file types right here. And they should be usually Microsoft Office, which would be Word or Excel or PowerPoint, whatever they want to use to submit their project. Them given the submission documents, they should all usually be Microsoft Office or Word at this point. If they are using an Apple product, when they open that Word document in the course page, it may open in an Apple product. But when they finish their project, they should convert that over to an Adobe PDF and upload it. I am here to help you, your class, to be as efficient as possible. So if you have any issues during your class, give me a call. If I do not answer your phone call, leave me a message or give me a text, and I will call you back as soon as I can. So highly encourage you, after you've explained the projects to your students, after they've submitted them, you scroll through, and this is what I tell the students that I teach. If they'll do their part, I'll do my part to make sure things go smooth. So I'll tell them, everyone, please have your project ones uploaded by tomorrow morning. So that evening, I will scroll through the projects and I'll report back, yes, everyone's file type for project one looks good. And we move on according to whatever schedule of whichever class we're in. So if you have any questions on that, let's hold the questions. Please jot it down somewhere, make you a note right quick. And when we get to the end, we'll discuss any questions you may have through, let me get through this, what I got to cover. And I may answer your question as I move forward. So, all right. So 15 projects for Officer 1, straightforward fire lieutenant type jobs that you would do as a fire lieutenant at a fire department in Alabama. 9 projects for Officer 2, duties that you would do as a fire captain in the state of Alabama. We talked about Microsoft Office, which is Word, PowerPoint, Excel, or Adobe PDF. If they're using an Apple product, it'll convert to Adobe PDF. And I just showed you how to verify the file type to expedite that grading process, because if we can't open the file, we can't grade it. And so then it's a back and forth between us and the student, and that takes time. Here's our new Fire Officer 3 and 4 book. Same thing, it'll be new PowerPoints. Highly encourage instructor prep time, read the book, look at the online course curriculum, including the projects. And it is much more efficient for you and I to discuss the projects before the class starts if you have any questions. Again, I'll repeat myself. My goal is to have a conversation with every one of you the week before you teach your class, so that if we have any issues that we can talk about then. But then once your class starts, you and I are in communication, and you can call, text, or email me anytime, depending on how urgent you need an answer. And I'm here for you. I'm here to serve you, to make these classes as efficient as possible, to make sure we're good quality classes, and folks are getting certified. Officer 3 has 9 projects, and when that is duties that a battalion chief in the state of Alabama would perform. So that's Officer 3, it's battalion chief level things. Officer 4, everyday duties that a fire chief, a deputy chief, or assistant chief would perform. These are straight from NFPA 1021. We're not embellishing them at all. It's straightforward duties that NFPA says this is what an Officer 3 has to be able to do, has to demonstrate that they can do. These are the duties, job performance requirements that an Officer 4 has to demonstrate to prove that they need to be certified. And that's all these are. Same thing, Microsoft Office or Adobe PDF, and verify your the file type to expedite grading. Now, here is one of the big changes this year, big change. So if you haven't paid attention to anything else, please hear this if you're teaching Officer 3 and 4. All Officer 3 and 4 projects are now individual. There are no more group projects in any of the officer series. Officer 1 through 4 or the 2 safety officers, there are no more no more group projects. They are all individual projects. Now, we have piloted these courses, and what we found was that the projects were pretty efficient in the students completing them, and we haven't had any issues yet. But this is, and again, I'm a why guy, so I'll tell you exactly why we did this, why we went to individual projects. The 50-question Officer 3 and Officer 4 test that we were given at the end of the week was so straightforward, because at this point in your career, you've been there, you've done that, and it was really just a hoop we were jumping through, and it didn't really have any meat to it. Where we went back and looked at the projects, and we were able to beat them up a little bit here and there to meet the knowledge objectives of the standard. So now there will be no written tests for Officer 3 or Officer 4. It will all be individual projects. Now, let me go back and say this. There will be a written test for Officer 1 and Officer 2. That is the entry level for officer series. And we could not meet the knowledge objectives with the projects alone. So there has to be that written test for Officer 1 and for Officer 2. Officer 1 and Officer 2, you have your projects, individual projects, and your written test. Officer 3 and Officer 4, individual projects only, no written test. So I hope everyone's clear on that. If you have questions, jot them down, and we'll talk about them here shortly. This is not going to take that long. Our process, the way it goes, if you have a class coming up 2 weeks out, if it is a campus course or an RTC or ETC course, then 2 weeks out, there will be a decision made in training if that class is going to make or not. Pre-registration is really big. If you have people going to a class, pre-register them as early as you can, because those numbers are looked at 2 weeks out to see if that class has enough students in it to make. So the process goes 2 weeks out, the class is looked at. If we have enough students in it to make the class, then it's made, and the class is opened up and made available to you, the instructor. So normally 2 weeks, the Monday, 2 weeks before your class, sometime that Monday, at the very latest Tuesday, you should log on to your AFC online, and your course will be there for you to start working your way through. Highly recommend you have the textbook before that, going through the textbook to see how the new textbook is laid out. But then 2 weeks out, you get your access to the curriculum and the projects. So that gives you 2 weeks to prepare. That gives you 2 weeks to call me. If I haven't, and my goal is to reach out to you, but you are always, please, welcome to call me within that 2 weeks and say, hey, I want to discuss the Officer 3 projects, or I want to discuss Officer 1 class. And that's what we'll do. And I will, if I'm not available right then, I will set aside time that you and I can have a nice discussion on the phone and walk through any part of that class you want to talk about. So that's why pre-registration is important. So the class will make, but there will always have students added at the last minute usually. So get that roster in to registration your first day of class. If you're being opened by your regional coordinator, which usually that's always going to happen, the regional coordinator or their representative, then they'll be there and they'll take care of that. But if for some reason they're not, then we need to get that class roster in as soon as possible to registration. So here it is again, all projects, officer 1 through 4, all individual, the 2 safety officers, individual as well. Students must turn in their own work that they have created. They're not to turn in projects that others have completed. All the projects required by NFPA. We get complaints about too many projects. They are all necessary to meet the NFPA standard and allow us to issue certification based on our current accreditation through IFSAC and Pro Board. So eliminating projects is not a realistic option. The standard didn't change a lot, so we went to looking at combining projects and trying to cut them down. And really the way the standard is laid out, every one of those, and again, none, especially, I know there's 15 projects in Officer 1, but they're all very straightforward tasks that a fire lieutenant would do at the fire station. So, and if you disagree with me, please let me know. I would love to have a conversation because my mind can always be changed if I'm looking at that standard wrong. As the students complete the projects, the internet is an excellent source, but please discourage them from copying and pasting content to complete a project. If they use an online source, they have to list the source and why it meets their needs for that project. And you're given those videos to show how to cite that source on their project. All projects are completed by the end of the class. Now, if you do hit an issue, I mean, we've had hurricanes hit during classes and things like that. So the goal is for all projects to be submitted by the last day of class. But if that's not going to happen, please make contact with me and I will make sure the class stays open as long as we need it to get all projects in. Our procedures to grade the projects after the course. If their project is submitted, needs to be reopened for whatever reason, contact me. If I'm not the one grading your projects, I will get them in contact with you very quickly and the project can be reopened. And this will be allowed up to the time the projects are graded. So once the course is over with and once the projects are submitted and ready for grading, that's it. But up until that point, we'll try to work with you to make sure the student gets every opportunity to be successful. So please don't just assign the projects. Okay, class, do project 1. Please don't do that. Open up the project, put it on the screen, introduce the students to the project, go over the project directions with them. I pull up the grading rubric on the screen in front of the class and make sure they understand everything that is expected of them on that project. Strongly urge the students to use the project directions in the grading rubric to guide their project content. And then make yourself available for project questions to clarify things. These are testing items, so we're not to tell them how to do them, but we are there to try to clarify anything that they may not understand. Health and safety officer, this is a very workload intensive course. It is 11 projects and the standard is written where a department would create a health and safety program. So it's very workload intensive. These are individual projects. When you go through this course, or if you're interested in teaching, if you do this for your department, you're interested in teaching this class, great, let me know. You will gain a knowledge of multiple NFPA standards. You'll be creating documents to be taken back to the student's department and used in their own health and safety, or so they have an idea how to create their documents for their department. Facilitates ideas to improve their current SOPs, their department, and do not allow the students to copy SOPs or copy and paste from the internet. If they have a robust health and safety program, make sure that they know they're not here just to submit their department's program to be graded. We're looking for their abilities to be certified, not their department. This is the new Health and Safety Officer textbook. It's the Occupational Safety, Health and Wellness 4th edition. And the Incident Safety Officer class did not change very much at all. Really, it's the same. That's the same. The standard didn't change, and so the course is basically the same. If you've never taught that class before, it is a fantastic class. It walks us through all the things that kill firefighters, and the students will apply current safety officer principle to NIOSH reports involving line of duty deaths and injuries. There's 8 projects that addresses structural firefighting, hazmat, technical rescue, wildland, and EMS involving air transport. We get a lot of feedback on these projects that they're kind of redundant. Are they really necessary? The bottom line, if your department is where you are able to have a house fire, a hazmat incident, an actual technical rescue incident, and have a wildland fire and an EMS incident involving air transport, then you can do live testing on these, I suppose. But we all know that logistically that would be very, very difficult, if not impossible, to have all those things in 1 week lined up. So what we've done is we took, and where these things have happened in real life through NIOSH reports, and we have the students to create, the book walks you through a couple of systems, one of those being a checklist system. And so we have them to create the checklist and then take and apply that checklist to each of these incident types. And that shows that they have a knowledge and they are able to operate in that incident type as an incident safety officer so that we can certify them. So the book is now the revised 3rd edition. There's very little changes. Officially, I tell you that the new textbook is the revised 3rd edition. I would invite you to compare the 2 books. There's very little change between the 2. Again, officially, I tell you to use the revised 3rd edition, but it's not a big difference from the existing 3rd edition. If you do not know the web, if you're ever in doubt on how to get to your online classroom, it is simply olc.alabamafirecollege.org. Now, that's what I have. Any questions on any of that? Because if you have a question, somebody else likely has the same question.
Hey, Todd.
Yes, sir.
Skip here. Could you put the textbook, the new textbook for health and safety officer, that slide back up?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Hey, Todd,
Yes.
on the projects for the fire officer 3, there's several different, on the 5-year budget, there's several different versions of that. Do we just issue one for all those students, or can we randomly give them a different version? Does it matter?
Yes. So if you've taught these classes before, we used to have the 3 versions. That's gone. But we kept that in project 5, so that would give you the ability to divvy out different dollars amount throughout the classroom. So great question.
All right, and you said officer 3 and 4 is no longer going to have the written exam or the computer exam on the final Friday. Is that correct?
Correct.
So would that being the case, are we going to have a proctor coming in on that Friday to do any kind of final paperwork, or when they submit their last project, are they done?
They'll need your roster, your completed roster, but as far as delivering a test, no. All those will be submitted online. So just like when they open up the course and get your roster, they'll need your final roster, and you can work that out with your regional coordinator how they want to do that. If they want you to, scan it and email it, I don't know, that'll be a question for one of the regional coordinators.
All right, good deal.
Todd, Gary Patrick.
Yes, sir. Hey, Gary.
You know, I'm old school. When we're showing the slides, do we have the option of one bullet at a time, or is it going to be one screen at a time?
It's the entire page at one time.
Okay.
Now, here is my contact information. I had my old email address on there. That's my current email address and my phone number. Please write that down, take a picture of your phone, put it in your phone. I am here to serve you guys as instructors. Without you teaching these classes, then the fire service is not improving out there. And that's our goal. All of our goal is to improve the fire service, to leave it better than we found it. So feel free to call me anytime, text message me, however you want to get. It depends on how urgent you need an answer. If you call me, then I will call. If I can't talk right then, I will call you back as soon as possible. But like I said, I'm here to serve you.
Hey, Todd, this is Matt.
Yes, sir.
Hey, thank you for, appreciate you doing the update this evening. I know Kim is she's upstairs doing answering the questions and all that. So a couple of things I wanted to mention. I did want to get on and obviously listen to what you had to say, and I appreciate you doing that. But a couple of things for the instructors out there. You guys need to know that I don't read every course critique, but I read about 90% of them. And if there's ever a question about a student put something on there, every once in a while, I'll send the staff an email saying, hey, can you investigate this? Let's find out what's going on. We are responsive to the course critiques. If your folks are complaining about something that we've put in the curriculum from the facilities, whatever the case, tell them to put it in the course critiques. We read those things. And again, I read most of them. About 95% of them. And so I know that staff sometimes don't like to hear from me on those things because they're probably already on top of it. And I'm just making their life a little more difficult. But we are responsive to those. Like Todd said, we work for you guys and we work for the folks in the fire service. And we want to make sure they have the information they need when it's crunch time. And so the way that we do that is we make sure that these projects comply with the NFPA standard. In regards to the projects themselves, we get a lot of complaints. And Todd, you may have covered this because I didn't hear all of your presentation, but I think it's worth coming from me directly to the instructors. The projects, we often hear too many projects. Well, the Alabama Fire College is not sitting down here rubbing our hands trying to devise a method to make your life miserable or the student's life miserable. These projects come from the National Fire Protection Association standard. They have requisite knowledge, requisite skills, and we have to cover those in order to be accredited so that you guys can receive certification to fire officer level. And so it's not our choice. If it was up to us, well, I promise you, we wouldn't change them every 5 years, and Todd wouldn't want to go through all that heartache and headache either. So it's not our choice. It's what NFPA says we must cover in order to be accredited and then duly and then certified. So just know that, and that's please explain that to the students. If they complain about the number of projects and all that, that's not us. That's what NFPA says. And so you guys, you need to know how to explain that to the students. So if you can curtail some of that stuff on your end, then we won't receive a lot of complaints and harassment on our end. So we would certainly appreciate that. In regards to the course materials, somebody had asked, can they get access to all the course materials? And if you want access, if you contact certification or web admin at alabamafirecollege.org, Tracy McNair can hook you up in Moodle, and we'll give you access to most of the stuff that you want. That stuff's already available through Moodle. One of the problems has been in the past, somebody would download on a thumb drive an old copy. They would teach Fire Officer 1 once, and then 6 years later, they'd want to use those same materials to teach it again. Well, obviously, every 5 years, the standard changes. And so they would be trying to they would teach an old version of a curriculum that had been updated. And so then we'd get a bunch of complaints, and what happens is they say, well, those people down at the fire college, they don't know what Todd Eddy, matter of fact, don't know what he's doing. He developed this program, and the problem is they're trying to do it, and this has actually happened. So I'm not speaking out of turn. Somebody taught an old curriculum for something that had been updated. And so that's the reason that we need to have these instructor updates, but then also we want to make sure you have the most up-to-date information. If you go to Moodle, it will be there. So we didn't encourage anybody to download anything, but just use the stuff that's on Moodle. So the last thing I'll say, I appreciate Todd Eddy. He's done a fantastic job with the curriculum, all the folks here at the Fire College. And I know a lot of the regional coordinators and some of the proctor monitors are online too. But our goal is to make sure that these students have a great experience. And that includes everything from the curriculum to the instruction. If you guys have a question, we work for you. Please don't hesitate to call your regional coordinator or us at the Fire College to get the word directly from us. We want to answer the questions. We want to make sure you guys have the information you need so that the student then can have all the information that they need to pass the test. They're always stressed about these tests and everything. And I understand that because, again, there's so many projects and we do focus intently on those because of the requisite knowledge that's required, requisite skill that's required from NFPA. But we also want them to pass the test too. So our pass rate is in the 90th percentile. So we have a very high pass rate. If they listen to the PowerPoint presentation, they're going to pass the class and do the project. So, but I did want to get on and just mention those few things, and y'all needed to hear that directly from me, so that take some of the heat off of some of our folks here inside the building, but then also the program managers too. So again, just appreciate everybody's work, all the work the instructors are doing out there to make sure that our folks in the field have what they need. So with that, Todd, thank you for allowing me a couple of minutes.
Yes, sir. Thanks for coming on. So anyone else got any questions that we could address? If you have it, then someone else may have the same question.
Hey, Todd, do we need to type our names in like some people are doing to register this update, or what? I missed the first 2 minutes.
So Kim, are you looking, there's 57 participants on. Do they all need to type in their?
Only if their name is different from their screen name. And there's some, I think, attending multiple. So if you're logged in with someone else sitting in a room, just so I can collect everyone. Like if it says iPhone or so-and-so's iPad, if you just throw that in, everybody else I'm collecting.
So short answer, yes, Chief.
Or you can, yes, please.
All right, anyone else have any questions? And if you think of a question after this is over with, you have my contact information. Feel free to contact me anytime. Love to hear from you.
Thanks for doing this, Todd.
Yes, sir. Really good to hear from you.
Appreciate it, Todd. If I have any issues next week, I'll give you a buzz.
Please do. All right, if you don't have any questions, throw your name in the chat if you're in doubt, if your screen name is not clear. If not, then you're welcome to sign off and have a great evening. And let's all go out there and make the Alabama Fire Service the best it can be. Let's leave it better than we found it. So let's do our job to study and prepare for these classes, give a great quality product out there that's going to make better officers for the next generation of firefighters. Thank you for everything you do.